Someday, we'll have robots as smart as people. Artificial intelligence, AI. How might that happen? One way is we'll collect more better software like we've been doing for 70 years. At past rates of progress, that may take centuries. Some think we're about to discover powerful new theories that will make it all happen faster. I'm skeptical. But today, I want to talk about a third scenario, porting the software that's in the human brain. Today, if you have an old computer running software you like, and you want software like it running on a new machine, one approach is to stare at the software, try to guess how it works, and then write software on the new machine that works how you think it works on the old machine. But another approach is to write what's called an emulator on the new machine. What you do then is to write a program that makes the new machine look like the old one to the software. If you can do that, you can just move the software, and it works without your having to understand it. So the idea is to try to do that for the human brain. To do this, we'll need 3 technologies to be there. None of them are good enough, and they may take centuries. First, we'll need lots of cheap, fast parallel computers. Second, we'll need to scan individual human brains in fine spatial and chemical detail to see exactly which kind of cells are where, connected to what. And third, we're going to need computer models of each kind of brain cell that says how they take signals in, change internal state, and then signals out. If we have good enough models of each kind of cell and a good enough scan of a brain, we can put it all together to make a model of an entire brain. This model would have the same input-output behavior. You could talk to it, it would talk back. You could ask it to do things, it might do them just like the original would in the same situation. And if this was cheap, they would change everything. This idea of brain emulation also goes by the name of uploads. It's been a staple of science fiction and futurism for many decades. When the subject comes up, people usually talk about, is it even possible? If you made an emulation, would it be conscious, or is it just an empty machine? If you made one of me, is that me or somebody else? These are all fascinating questions that I'm going to ignore because I've thought there was a neglected question. What would actually happen? And I've spent several years writing a book analyzing what would the world look like if we had brain emulations and they were cheap. And I'm here to tell you what I found. But be warned, I'm giving you analysis, not inspiration. My job is to tell you what's most likely to happen if we did the least to avoid it, not what you or I would like. If you don't find something I say at least a bit disturbing, you're just not paying attention. Okay, the first thing I can tell you is that emulations spend most of their lives in virtual reality. Now, in virtual reality, this is what you look like, kind of doofy. But what you see might be sunlight glinting off the water, you might hear seagulls flying above, you might feel the wind on your cheeks, or smell the seawater. You might want some extra tools, for example, to send a phone call, or jump to a new virtual world, or deal with your finances. Now, this is what you look like in virtual reality. This is what an emulation looks like. It's computer hardware sitting on a server rack somewhere. But what it sees can be the same thing that you would see in virtual reality. And in fact, while you always know you're not really in real reality, to an emulation, it could feel as real as this room feels to you now, or as anything ever feels to you, because it's that real. In addition, M's have new abilities that you don't have in this world. For example, you're always running at the same speed, but M's can speed up or slow down by using more or less computer hardware. So when the world around them seems to be going too fast to handle, they can just speed up and the world around them seems to slow down. They can make a copy of themselves. That copy might start out in the same situation, watching the same scene, and it might not know it's the copy. It might need to be told, you are the copy. They might make archive copies, and in this way become in principle immortal, although not in practice. They could move their brain to some other location, and it can actually move around the world at the speed of light. We've been talking about what emulations see and what they can do, but what do they choose to do? To understand what they choose to do, we need to understand that their options are limited. So today, an emulation is, by definition, something that would do the same thing a human would do in the same situation. So their behavior is very understandable. We just have to understand that they live in a different world. Emulations, even though they're in virtual reality, they need real resources to exist. Just like you need food or shelter or you'll die, emulations need computer hardware, energy, cooling, or they won't exist. Every minute that they exist has to be paid for by somebody, usually themselves working. The M population can grow much faster than can the M economy, and so M's are actually poor. They're living at subsistence wages. Now, they're in a virtual reality where they never need to feel pain, hunger, disease, or grime. Their bodies can always be beautiful. So it's a nice world. And in fact, this is what it looks like most of the time. It doesn't cost much more to have a beautiful, luxurious world in virtual reality. However, since they're working most of the time, these are desks. They mostly see a work environment. Now, we've been talking about what things are like from each M's point of view. Let's stand back and look at the entire emulation world. Their economy can grow much faster than ours. Our economy doubles roughly every 15 years. Their economy can double roughly every month. And so what would take us centuries of change, for them can happen in just a few years, which is why I actually can't project this economy much beyond a year or two. I don't know what happens next. The emulations themselves are even faster. They're running roughly 1,000 times human speed. So for them, their world around them is actually changing more slowly than your world seems to change for you. And they congregate into a small number of very dense cities. In fact, because they're going so fast, travel is very slow, and so mostly cities are self-sufficient. Most war is cyber war. And most of the rest of the Earth is left to humans because the M's aren't very interested in it, at least for a while. Speaking of humans, human wages, subsistence living is well below M subsistence living, and so basically all humans have to retire all at once for good. Now, humans start out owning this whole world, and because the economy doubles every month, their wealth can double every month, so humans are getting very rich very fast. However, many people today don't own much besides their ability to work. So between now and then, they need to require sharing arrangements or insurance, or they may starve. I suggest we do something about that. You may wonder, why would the M's let humans exist? Why not kill them and take their stuff? But you may notice we have many retirees around today, and we don't kill them and take their stuff. You might wonder why. Well, plausibly doing so would disrupt the institutions we share with them. Everybody else might wonder who's next. So you shouldn't worry too much about the humans in this era of a year or two. What you should worry most is, I'm only telling you what happens for a year or two, and then I don't tell you what happens next. Humans should worry what happens next. Emulations are like humans, but they're not like typical humans. They're copies of the most productive humans in this new world. So emulations are going to be different than the ordinary human. They're going to be elite. They're going to be like typical Nobel Prize winners, Olympic gold medalists, chess champions. They're going to be much better than the average human because they're selected for that. They will look on humans with nostalgia and gratitude, perhaps not so much respect, which is, if you think about it, how you think about your ancestors. We know many things about how better, more productive humans differ from others today, and so we can use that to predict that M's are going to be smarter, more conscientious, middle-aged, married, religious, because these are how more productive people today are. M's will, of course, have a lot of variety, all the ones that humans have today, but they'll have additional variety. Not only will they have varied personalities or professions, they can also vary in speed. Emulations can go up to 1 million times faster than human speed or down to 1 billion times slower than speed. Faster emulations have the markers of high status in our world. They have more wealth, they know things first, they sit at premium locations, they host meetings. This is a class hierarchy in essence. The slower emulations are mostly retirees. M's have to retire after a limited career length, even if they are immortal. And retirees are like the ghosts of our literature. If you recall, ghosts are supposedly all around us. We can interact with them if we choose, but they don't know much. They're obsessed with the past. They can't do much for us, so what's the point? M's also have variety in the structure of their lives. So today, your life is simple. You start and then you end. But because M's can make copies, they can have this structure. Every day at the beginning of the day, they can make a few additional copies, each of whom works during the day and then ends at the end of the day. And these are cheaper. They don't have to pay to rest to the next day. M's can be opportunistic and make more copies of the versions of them that are more in demand, less copies of the less demand versions. They can design a whole system and then recursively split into copies who design the parts and then create a much larger, more coherent design than you guys can. This is an emulation plumber. They remember every day for the last 20 years, they only ever worked 2 hours a day. What happens at the beginning of their workday, they made 1,000 copies, each of whom did a 2-hour job. And then at the end of the day, only 1 copy went on to the next day. They're objectively working well over 99% of the time, but subjectively, they remember a life of leisure. This, again, is you start and you end. This could be you if at the beginning of a party you took a drug that meant you didn't remember that party the next day or ever after. I'm told some people do that. The question is, at the end of the party, will you say to yourself, I'm about to die. That person tomorrow, that's not me, because they don't remember what happened at the party. You could say that, or you could say, I will go on tomorrow but I just won't remember what I did at this party. This is an emulation who makes a short-term copy, which then ends. They could say to themselves, I'm a new creature with a short life, I'm about to die, I hate this. Or they could say, I will go on, I just won't remember what I did. I predict they will take that second attitude, not because it's philosophically correct, but because it helps them get along in this world. That's what makes them feel OK. So I've been telling you for a while about this strange new world. You probably are immediately trying to decide if you love it or hate it. But just realize, if your ancestors from 1,000 years ago had been asked to talk about your world and told a few things about it, they would have loved it or hated it based on just the first few things they heard, because your world is just really weird. It should take you some time to understand a strange new world and to decide what you like or don't like about it. You might even want to read a whole book. So once you understand this world, if you don't like it, then you might want to work to change it and do something about it. And I hope you do. Thank you.